Hey gang, or good morning, rather. My name is Mike at Filmboy24, and thank you for popping in. I really appreciate it. If you did pop in, maybe you've been sitting by the computer waiting and waiting for this episode. Today is going to be a fun one because we're going to break down this film, this retro classic films offering Silver 100. It's a Super 8 black and white film, medium speed, and it's coming up next. If you're new to this channel, I shoot, process, and scan still film and cinefilm with an emphasis on cinefilm. I don't ever send my films, ever, unless it's crazy, I don't know, out for processing. I do it all in-house, right here in my house, in-house. I scan it all by myself on my Movie Stuff Retro Scan 2K scanner. I do that because that's what I enjoy doing. You don't always get the best result. If I'm not a professional, big shot, $1 million lab, I'm just a little YouTuber that likes to mess with film. This is my hobby. Like most of us. Today, I have something interesting to share with you. I was contacted by Chris over at Super 8 Today. And Chris has been a longtime supporter of this channel. Really, really good guy. And he asked me if I would be interested in checking out the Silver 100 offering that he sells both on eBay and his website. I will put a link to those things in the description below. Those down there. So if you're interested afterwards, all said and done, after we wrap this up, you know where to grab a roll. So he sent me 2 rolls of this, and I was super excited because I've never tried it. Not even sure what it is, to be honest with you. I was sort of left in the dark on that, to figure it out on my own. And that's what I like to do. It is Silver 100. That's what it's called. That's what it's sort of a vanity title. It was named, I don't know if Chris is the one that actually created this name, but over at Super 8 Today, that's his company, I believe he does the packaging for it, and a really nice job at that he does. I'm like Yoda. You get beautiful box. It's even got a nice satin feel to it. I know you're not here for just the box, but then you get brand spanking new, freshly rolled Silver 100 in this cartridge, ready to shoot. Labeled on the front, just in case you leave it out, Silver 100. It's a 100 ISO film, or 125 right here on the back. If you're shooting it in tungsten lighting conditions, or 3200, you know, the yellow 3200 degrees Kelvin, it is ISO 100. Outside without a filter, at 5500 degrees Kelvin, it's considered ISO 125. Now it's notched the same as 100D, exactly the same as 100D, the Ektachrome film. It does not have a notch on the bottom. That means it's going to push the filter, the 85 filter in most all of your cameras, out of the way. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't want to use the filter with this film, unless you want to. I don't. So I was curious about this because one of my favorite Super 8 films is no longer produced, and that's Plus X. Plus X I like because it's a slow speed film, it's really sharp, and it's a super fine grain film. It's like 50D, and 50D is my favorite color film. So I really like those tight grain films. The offerings that we have now in Super 8 are so limited. We have Tri-X, which is it's a not so fine grained film. It's a little bit faster speed film. It's a 200 ISO. This is 100. I truly wish Kodak would bring Plus X back. So that's kind of why I had high hopes for this. So I took a roll out, or a cartridge out. And by the way, here it is, all processed, ready to go. I spooled it onto here into a dark bag, and then I cut a little strip. And I always do a test strip because I have no idea how to process this film. I processed tons, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rolls of cinefilm, black and white, color, everything, but never this. You're going into it blind. So I cut a little strip. I don't know, about 6 inches, and I do my dunk testing. With this, I use HC110. I use the B formula. It's a pretty decently high contrast developer, black and white developer. I know D19 is probably the ideal developer. I do make my own D19, but in this instance, I just wanted to use HC110. So that's what I did. So I took this strip, and into the dark room, I started dunking. And I went dunk, 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 and then a final dunk. So at the top, I have 6 minutes, then 7 minutes, then 8 minutes, and then 9 minutes on the bottom. That was just sort of my test to see, and then you hold it up and you kind of see where you're at. Full disclosure, I probably pushed this film a little too far. I think it's overdeveloped just a tad. According to my test strip, 9 minutes looked pretty good. It looked pretty good. It had some decent contrast. I could tell. I used my loop. I used a light. And it looked pretty good. It looked like it had some detail and some decent sharpness and some contrast. And I love contrast. But you can overdo it if you really push your film too far. And I may have pushed it probably about 1.5 minutes too far. It's okay. It's a negative. I processed this as a negative. So you get more latitude that way in post. So you can sort of come back from it a little bit. You do lose a little bit of the detail in the shadows when you do that. I was okay with that. As you'll see in a minute, it still came out. Well, I'm not going to get to that yet, but it came out. I used my trusty Canon, one of my Canon series cameras. Canon, if you know me or follow my channel, you know in Super 8, Canon is my absolute favorite. I have a lot of Canon Super 8 cameras, but I decided let's go full auto with the Canon 814 Auto Zoom Electronic. I don't think I've done a video yet on this camera, but I will be doing that eventually. It's one of my all-time favorite cameras, it's definitely in my top 10 favorite Super 8 cameras. And I did everything at 24 frames per second and all completely auto exposure. You can do manual exposure with this camera. This one is a little finicky. The pad inside here, this is your auto expose or your manual exposure. You pull this out and then you can turn. It turns the iris. The pad is wearing out in there and I've got to take this apart and try to create a new one. And until that happens, I just decided I wanted to do auto anyway because for the most part, most people, when you buy this film, you're probably going to shoot it in auto exposure. So let's see what that does. And I know I have a good enough camera here that shoots really well in auto exposure. I just kind of wanted to see, you know, if the notch system was correct, if everything was jiving with Silver 100, because we don't know what that film is. I have some speculation about what kind of film that really is, but I'm not 100% sure. And I didn't ask Chris. That's not for him to say. He's selling it at Silver 100. I think it's Whitner pan, but I don't know. It's cheaper than Whitner pan, but and it's sold here in the U.S. So if it is a Whitner pan 100, you have that in Europe. We have this here in the U.S. This is a tad bit cheaper. So what do we get? I processed this in HC110 B formula. I just explained. I did it for 9 minutes at about 66 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 66.5. It does warm up a little bit as you process it. There's no rim jet on this film. Yay! So fixed it about 7 minutes. My fixer is getting near the end of its life cycle, so I went about 7 minutes. I usually go 5 to 7. Rinsed it off real good. I put some photo flow in some distilled water and I, sloshed it around and squeegeed it dry and hung it up and let it dry for another hour or two. Rolled it up and scanned it. So what do we have? Well, I'm going to show you what we have. My wife and I took a little walk around a pavilion here in my city. And they got a half a mile walk around this big lake, and there's a whole bunch of shops and shopping and the movie theaters and whatnot. So I just took this over there and I just blasted off this roll of film. Here it is. I think with some tweaking, proper developing, like I say, I think I pushed that film a little bit too far. I'm going to go 7.5, maybe 8 minutes on, I have a second roll on this roll here, and I'm probably going to manually expose most of this roll. I'm going to try it in a couple of different cameras. Keep an eye out. This will be coming. I don't know when. It might be into the new year because I have a lot of other things scheduled. But overall, this particular roll, I'm really happy with it. It's a little grainier than Plus X, but it appears to be a little less grainy than Tri-X. Now again, when you push your film a little too far, like I probably did, that's gonna open up some more grain structure. That's going to give you a little bit more unwanted grain than you normally would get. So, but being a negative as opposed to a reversal, with reversal you don't really have that much leeway on what you can do in post. You have some, but nothing like a negative, and that's kind of what we were looking for here. Chris had asked me, he's done some reversal work with it, but never any negative work, and that's what I do. So, like I say, I'm going to try a little less time on this roll here, but now I have a really good starting point. But it's very contrasty, and I love that because I love contrast in film. I really think that's what separates film from not film or digital. And like I say, I think it falls. There is a lot of tonal range in there. When I was working on it in post, there are so many different grays. I had a lot of range to be able to bring up my black levels but not kill my shadows and sort of brighten my whites and not blow everything out. Now, the exposure is also off just a little bit. There are some blowout and there are some underexpose, a little here and there. Overall, I'm super happy. I think it's going to be a really fun addition to the Super 8 catalog that we have available right now. And like I said earlier, I'll leave links to this film right there in the description if you're interested. And I think it's important that we patronize sometimes people that are trying desperately to keep film in front of us. Does that make sense? I mean, it's a tiny bit more expensive than the Ektachrome 100D, but you have to remember this is a more vanity, a more specialty film. We don't have any black and white film in the ISO 100 range currently available for Super 8 right now. At least we don't here in the States. Like I say, they do have the Whitner pan in European regions. We don't. This is going to be, I think, a really nice addition. So make sure you check it out. At least check out the eBay link. I'll leave it right down there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you could do me a favor. You see Clark? He's right over there. Clark Griswold. Just tap him. He's kind of like my like button. Well, don't tap him. The like button's down there. It helps me. It helps the channel grow a little bit and get this in front of more people and hopefully bring film into way more homes across the universe. If you think I've earned it, right there, subscribe. Then you won't ever miss an episode. Well, you still might miss it, but you'll just see it in the backlog of videos that you forgot to watch. And until the very next time that I see all of your stunningly gorgeous faces, and that'll be at another upcoming deliciously tasty video. There it is. There it is. I don't know why I do that. I'll see all of you on the very next go around.